Coming to Kickstarter this June, John Haynes at Death's Door, the man who rules the world, takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the standard and variant editions of John Haynes at Death's Door and lots of other great stretch goal rewards on Kickstarter this June. Black Americans need to demand the tangible of justice in an anti-black hate law. Now, in the aftermath of the act of domestic terrorism that took place at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo, I believe it is time for Black Americans to demand the tangible of justice in the form of an anti-black hate crime law. Now, I find it interesting that Asians could go out here and get an anti-Asian hate crime law passed almost within a year of your Joe Biden becoming president of the United States, and could get this bill passed unanimously through the House and the Senate with support from both parties. However, an anti-black hate bill has not been passed by any president in the nearly 60 years since the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You would think that black people would have demanded the tangible of an anti-black hate bill back then. Unfortunately, many have not gone out here and made this demand of their government because they believe that they would get their rights protected through the Civil Rights Act. Unfortunately, many black people's rights have been violated time and time again by those who hate black people, and I believe it is time that we set a hard boundary for those who would go out here and wage acts of violence on black Americans, who, by punishing them for participating in anti-black racism and anti-black hatred, by making it a law to, when you go out here and participate in these acts of domestic terrorism, and let you know that there is going to be a punishment for going out here and participating in hate crimes against black people, like the one that was perpetrated in the Tops supermarket in Buffalo. Now, the reason why we need an anti-black hate bill is because we need laws that specifically punish people for targeting foundational black Americans, because in most cases we have seen over the last 200 years since the Emancipation Proclamation, there has been no standard for punishing people for participating in acts of terrorism, such as lynchings, such as the destruction of black towns in acts of terrorism like the destruction of Rosewood and Black Wall Street. We have not seen any sort of standard or rule of law to hold those terrorists accountable for the acts of terrorism they participate in. And I use the word terrorism because we need to start calling these acts of terrorism what they are. They are designed to terrorize black people and make them scared to go about their everyday lives without being afraid of a white supremacist. That's the only reason why these white supremacists participate in these acts. They want black people to be scared to live their lives, and they want black people to feel inferior and put themselves in a second-class status where they remain codependent to those who believe in white supremacy, and those who hate black people can feel superior because they can put black people in a second-class position. That is why we need to have federal laws on the books, and I dare to say we need to have a constitutional amendment ensuring that people will be punished for participating in acts of terrorism against black Americans, because these acts of terrorism, they are designed to take away a black American's constitutional rights that are guaranteed under the 13th and 14th Amendments, and are also guaranteed by the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, back in 1964 and 1965, respectively. I believe it is time that we had a tangible law on the books that will set a boundary as related to these white supremacists and let them know that the United States government will be holding a line that ensures that black people are under the same protections of the law that your Asians currently receive under this anti-Asian hate bill. I mean, if the Asians can get a hate bill to protect them from hate crimes, then black Americans who came to this country and built it, they should be assured the ability to be able to gain the same protections under the law, because we have been terrorized for over 2 centuries as a result of white supremacist violence. And what we need is a standard so that these white supremacists will be punished for the acts of terrorism that they participate in. Now, this whole concept of an anti-black hate crime law, this is something that scares many white supremacists and their supporters, whether they be politicians on the left or the right, or many of the black bootlicks who are codependent on the system of white supremacy. Many of these individuals do not want to see an anti-black law, because an anti-black law means that there is a law on the books that will actually punish many of these white supremacists, and this law would ensure that there would be a standard of law which ensures justice. And that's something many on the left and the right don't want, because they benefit from the system of white supremacy. They benefit from keeping black people in a second class status, and they are comfortable with black people in a second class status, and they are comfortable looking to be able to get away with doing all sorts of criminal behavior on black people and participating in hate crimes, because that benefits them. So they don't want an anti-black hate crime law, because America was founded on white supremacy. America was founded on anti-black racism, and ending anti-black racism through law is something the white supremacist doesn't want, because he likes having a place where he can be in a position where he's superior to everyone. And one of the goodies he benefits from is being able to have a system of injustice where he cannot be held accountable for crimes, and he can arbitrarily pick and choose what crimes he's punished for. But we need a standard of justice that ends anti-black racism, because anti-black racism is something that is designed to make it where black people cannot have their right to live, their right to freedom, their right to liberty and pursuit of happiness in a country that they built. And that standard is egregious, and it's really egregious that over 200 years in this country, and we still have not addressed this issue. And we haven't really addressed this issue because many black bootlicks would rather sit here and not talk about this issue, because they want to continue receiving benefits from white supremacy instead of making sure that there's a standard of true equality for everyone. And this anti-black hate bill would ensure that we would have a standard of justice, because an anti-black hate bill punishes anti-black racists, and punishing anti-black racists for hate crimes is something black Americans really need to get serious about talking about, because this is a tangible of justice black people are entitled to, as I see it, because again, under our Constitution, citizens of the United States should be able to go and pursue their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness without having to worry about the shadow of a group of terrorists coming into their community to do harm to them, like the mass shooter did in the Tops supermarket. And again, What good is having people in Congress and the Senate if they cannot bring you tangibles in exchange for your vote? And the tangible of justice is an important one for foundational black Americans to go out here and fight for, because that tangible of justice is something you are guaranteed under the United States Constitution, and it is your right to go out here and get that tangible, to get tangibles specifically targeting you, and the tangible of an anti-black hate bill. This is a tangible we need. We do not need things that are made very broad, like, oh, domestic terror bill, or your so-called general hate crimes laws, because these can be manipulated through interpretation of the law. No, we need an anti-black hate crime law that is specifically focused on black Americans, because everybody else can get the tangible of justice. I mean, if an Asian person can get an anti-Asian hate crime law passed that would be used against foundational black Americans, then foundational black Americans should have a law on the books that specifically targets all white supremacists, regardless of their color and their ethnicity. And this is something most people really don't understand. Most of these anti-black racists are not just your white Americans. There are Hispanic people, Asian people, and even people from the Middle East and many other countries who participate in anti-black racism, participate in anti-black hatred, and look to perpetrate anti-black hate crimes. And all of those people need to be held accountable under the same standard of law, because anyone who participates in a hate crime needs to be punished to the full extent of the law. And we need, again, a specific anti-black hate crime law to deal with anti-black racists, because these anti-black racists and white supremacists and those who participate in the philosophy of white supremacy, and I dare say the religion of white supremacy, they need to be held accountable when they perpetrate violence against black Americans, and violence specifically at black Americans, like this terrorist who participated in the mass shooting at the Tops supermarket. We cannot go in and let people distract us with empty symbolic gestures like presidential visits and hugs. No, we have to demand the tangible of justice, because the tangible of justice is the only thing we need at the end of the day, because the tangible of justice is one where we have laws that will finally start punishing these white supremacists, and punishing them and letting them know there is a boundary as related to how black people are treated, and how when you go out here and harm a black person, you will be punished for harming that black person. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller.